The next thing, I don't have the agenda open. There was one other item, wasn't there?
So, apologies if we just wait for the YouTube, Chair.
Okay.
So, apologies, Chair.
Okay, have you had any actually, Tom? No.
Sorry, no apologies, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's just note again that our next meeting is scheduled to be in March, which is the last finance panel meeting for this council year. So I think we have a somewhat...
I think also at that meeting, now things have moved around on the forward plan, it's likely that we shall have to take a look at the changes to the business plan rather than scrutiny, because there are, I think, 13 items going to cabinet on in March, and so we won't get to be able to look at all of them at scrutiny. So I'm trying to shift as many as I can elsewhere. So that will also come in March to finance and performance.
Thanks very much. We also had in the agenda, as I recall, the notes from our meeting in early December, before we got into all the budget papers. As I recall, I looked very quickly. To me, they seem fine. Did anyone have any comments on those? No? Okay, great.
Just a quick reminder, Chair, declarations of interest.
Okay.
I know there's
unlikely to be any declarations of interest. No. Okay, I still don't have the agenda open, but I'm getting ready now to go to the draft, very helpful, that Tom sent out. Now, what I'm going to request, if that's possible, because we have to get the final report ready to go to scrutiny early next week. So what I would like to suggest is, if you have comments on the draft, and Tom, are you going to share it with my suggestions? You said you'd largely incorporated them.
I've already sort of incorporated them. I will send them out if the group wants to see them, etc. But I mean, they are largely cosmetic and, as you say, editorial. So there's nothing in there that really changes what people are seeing, apart from making it read better and more accurately. So I think largely they can just be taken as read.
Can I just check without? Sorry, Chair. Can I just check the version you sent round a Word document earlier today, didn't you, Tom?
I sent one round Sunday, yes.
Sunday, yes. We must have a word with you about working on Sundays, but that is
it's only when the budget is happening. I promise. It's not something I choose to do very often.
Right, too. But that is the one that we're talking about with the blue text.
And then subsequent to that, James then sent to me some of his comments in track changes, which is what he's talking about. But I haven't sent those round. But as I say, they are just editorial and proofreading mainly. So we can work from what I sent round to you.
So just so that you know, what is new, which is very helpful, is what Tom has. If you can open it, it starts off chapter 4, findings and recommendations. Have you all seen a copy of that? I hope so. If you have it on your screen, it's really more for you to shout at this point if there's anything that is staring you in the face that needs to be sort of questioned. But any other comments which can maybe be done by suggesting bits of text, please send those to Tom. By Thursday, I was going to suggest, so that we get this done and he doesn't have to work on Sunday. So we start with the housing revenue account, which, if you recall, has an explanation. I tried to slightly edit how it was presented, but was about the ratio of rent to debt. And I tried to clarify that this was to be on an annual basis in terms of debt service, rent, that was the ratio. Then there was the issue about tenant ambassadors, which comes up again a bit later, I think, in one of the other recommendations. Then we have a brief mention of, I'm just scrolling through, maybe if any of you have anything to say, I'll go on scrolling. We go, paragraph 6 is about post-Grenfell and the social housing white paper. And we end up with this recommendation, which is in paragraph 7, that we provide a baseline figure of the carbon savings generated by ensuring that 95% of properties achieve the lowest level of C EPC ratings, which I'm pretty sure we did discuss. Are there any?
Could I ask, so this is kind of, there was a lot of discussion about that, and I was trying to cut through sort of a lot of the discussion to get to what I thought was the nub of it. I just want to check that you're happy that I haven't oversimplified it, or in doing so cut anything out that you felt was particularly important about that particular issue.
That it seemed well summarized to me.
Cool.
Okay, I mean, I think it seemed fair. We come on, because I know the issue of Howard homes came up. So Howard houses, sorry, which you see is in paragraph 8. And I think you did try to finesse this a bit. It gave rise to that recommendation, which may have been one of yours, Imogen, I can't remember. Yeah. Can you just look at the wording there, that so far as practically possible, the council ensures that energy inefficient homes are prioritised for retrofitting. And I just added at the end, notwithstanding the complexity of the task.
Yeah, I think it does cover it. It's this idea that the houses that maybe need the most work done will actually be pushed to the end, to the back of the queue, without any interim measures. So, families that are in the worst energy efficient homes could spend more winters in the cold. And I think it does. I think it covers that in a slightly different nuance from what we were talking about before. But I think it works well. So I'm happy with how Tom summarised that. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts.
Okay, that's great. And then we came on to OCHL. I was querying with Tom, and he's clarified, just to be precise. I mean, we're not mentioning the key site, and it is apparently exactly 300 houses being proposed for Sandy Lane. So I just wanted to be sure that we knew what this was. But I think our key recommendation was just to understand how much the delay to Redbridge, or the non-existence now of Redbridge for ODS, maybe there is a very slight silver lining, which is that it's possible, I suppose, I think it's true, that OCHL will have a slightly larger area that it may be able to develop. But it would be good to get something about this in any budget revised forecasts. Yes, please, Andrew. Yeah.
James. Yes, I just, I don't know if this is appropriate, or indeed if it was discussed at a part of the meeting I wasn't at, but this recommendation about the ODS depot doesn't make any mention of the current depot, which is in the middle of Cuslow Park, which is not terribly satisfactory for all sorts of reasons. Is there a way of factoring a consideration of that into this? I mean, this is a budget report, so we'll be talking about the financial side of it, but I mean, of comparing the current running costs with the potential savings from a new site.
I mean, could I I mean, could I suggest, because I believe that ODS has been doing all kinds of simulations of what if, and I don't know. I mean, you'll be aware there was talk about taking over a bus garage site out near Kassam, and I think that's fallen by the wayside. Do you want, I mean, certainly I feel we could probably stress again how important the whole ODS rationalization, consolidation is for the future budget. And then we could maybe mention, I mean, some people would probably want to mention Cowley Marsh and the looming deadline for permission for the extension that was given, you know, to that site, which was only temporary, and that is about to lapse. So maybe we could come up with a suggestion for Tom of somehow combining this with the broader picture about the urgency of getting a resolution to ODS's new depot. And you could maybe think of some form of words, Andrew, on Cutslow Park, and we could maybe slip in about, you know, being mindful of the need to vacate part of the Cowley Marsh site, and, you know, the difficulty of serving lots of vehicles from Cowley Marsh. Maybe we could add something to. Could you maybe draft something, Andrew?
Yes, perhaps Tom, if you and I could take that offline. Yeah, thanks.
That's absolutely fine.
That'd be great.
Thank
and
you.
Slip in horse paths at some point as well. You know, because those are all the sites that would become available. Okay, thanks. Then we come to tenant engagement, which Tom reminded me was probably from Linda. I just added a question to Tom. This was about, there are 5 full-time equivalent posts being created. I wasn't clear where they were going to go. Were they going in the tenant involvement team? I wasn't quite sure what the proposal was.
It's not decided yet. It's simply that those posts will be created. And what Linda was wanting to say was that she would like to make sure that the possibility of tenant engagement workers being linked in with the current tenant involvement team should be pursued.
Which is, I think, captured, I hope people agree, in the recommendation. You know, at the end of that paragraph 11. I hope that's acceptable. Okay, sorry, I'm going back to my screen again. Then we've got the general fund. There's the Floyd's Row, which I think with Tom in an email exchange, I tried to clarify what I think it is that I was trying to get across in the recommendation at the end of paragraph 14. Because for those of you not familiar with it, Floyd's Row was intended to be, I think, with dormitory-like accommodations for rough sleepers, but it was actually intended also to be for more demanding cases. And that wasn't possible with COVID. And I'm not quite sure, given that we've spent a lot of money getting that building up and we've changed the model, I just want to know what are the costs of possible transition, because I don't know that it's ever intended right now to go back soon to how it was originally envisaged. So I'm just trying to get a clearer assessment of the costs, because while some costs are being shared with other councils, I don't believe the capital cost and the like is necessarily being shared. So that was what that question was about. Okay. And then we come to CPPC.
Stuff in black text, Chair,
Yes.
is stuff that's already been gone through. So
That's right.
The next bit that's new, I think, is 48, which is just what just the revised version of what we were talking about, the out of hours service.
Yes. Have you, I hope you've had a chance to read it. It does publicise the noise app. I hope it's strong. I mean, we just say does more to publicise. Maybe we could make a priority to publicise or something to stress how important this is as an alternative to having someone on the phone who often takes time to come out. But I feel that does capture fairly. Did you put your hand up, Andrew? Or?
No, I was just agreeing with your general point there, James.
Thanks, okay. All right, and then we trundle on through community services and everything. I'm trying to find
the next one is 67, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, there we are, yes. This is about the investigation service. I have actually redrafted it to try to make it a bit stronger. I tried to note that the county has opted to end using the city's investigations team service and set up its own much smaller unit, which is to try to make the point we should not be duplicating, I think, and stressing the desire for cross-working. I can't see, you're in a strong position there, Andrew. Do you, would you like to reinforce the wording?
Well, being on scrutiny reviews of 2 budgets at the same time is definitely more than my brain can cope with. No, I don't think so. I mean, the recommendation, you know, captures the intention, doesn't it?
It does, and it's money saving. I cannot believe this is efficient.
No, quite. I mean, you know, the whole issue of joint working in the context of the county council has rather been sort of thrown into a certain amount of confusion by last week's events, which you may know about.
Yes,
but as a standalone item, then absolutely agree with you. Yes.
Okay, great. And then Tom's going to tell us the next blue bit. There it is. It's very soon. Yes, 72. I just tried, I don't know if you're familiar, if any of you, I think some of you have sat in on the ODS, if you like, AGM and the presentation of the annual report, where they do distinguish between, in their budget, secure and non-secure sources of revenue. And I just tried to clarify that it's gross revenue, it's not profits, if you like. We don't necessarily know that, but we were asking that could be replicated elsewhere. It is helpful. And for the legal services, I think a lot of it is actually secure. So it'd be good just from the risk point of view to highlight that.
If I could just remind everyone, once we get to commercial property, this is probably the most commercially sensitive area, so we may need to show a bit of caution.
I believe that as you go down, I deliberately removed any mention of a possible purchase, just so that we didn't slip it in by mistake.
I think this will probably be published confidentially so that we can talk frankly about it, but it wasn't. It isn't. So because we're being broadcast, then we do still need to be careful.
Absolutely, no, I understand. Okay, there is, and we had the paper from Emma Gubbins on car parking, and we do discuss that here. And I think one of you came up with the recommendation on undertaking the review at 3 and 6 months, given the uncertainties about car park revenue. I think that's probably the best we can hope for in current circumstances, but it's a good recommendation. I would assume it'll be accepted. readily. And then we're asking, as we go down to paragraph 79, the modelling of ZEZs on park and ride and so on. Okay, and then we talk about a possible way of getting purchases delivered out to park and ride. I mean, when the ZEZ city centre one's in operation, people probably will be less keen to drive into town. So in paragraph 81, without saying what was there before, I just changed it to read the likelihood of an important purchase proceeding. I thought that was the best way of mentioning it without breaching any confidentiality. And we have then the, we try twice, 83, 84. I think we're trying to make a point. You don't have to stick to commercial property investments. There are other opportunities, especially regeneration, where you can get PWLB funding. And that's particularly true of regeneration of the one lot of properties the City Council knows about because they own them. I think we've made those recommendations before. So this is not new to the budget scrutiny. So I assume it's acceptable. We're getting very near the end, aren't we? Oh no, we come to covered market, but we're going to cover that separately. Do we know, Tom, when we're going to be expecting a report in the next civic year?
I would aim to have it as the first one because it's useful to have things lined up for that first meeting when we're still getting things sorted and there's not necessarily lots on the cabinet agenda. So yeah, I'll whenever the first meeting is, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. And who is going to, is it under Tom Bridgman or who's preparing that report?
I would assume that it would be Jane Winfield with sort of Tom Bridgman's oversight, but that would be just an assumption.
Okay. No, thanks. And then we come to not yet, clarified conclusions, but with the main bullets there, I think the key points. So
I was asking James at the start, but it's sort of worth pointing out to all of you, is that kind of, are those conclusions where you think it's fair for us to reach and that you want to make, or is there another point that you think is important to reach?
I mean, it's good that you're highlighting, by and large, the risks that we face in the general context and in particular in this budget. No,
I think other people might just be having a sort of reread of it.
That's right. Any comments? Now I'm sure you're all speed readers. You've had a chance. Look, if you think there is some important item that should be flagged up in the conclusions, because that's what many people sort of jump to if they're not going to read the whole document, please flag them to Tom. And I mean, I think we all know we're going to get, sadly, interim revisions to the budget as more information becomes available, partly about government policy, but also during the year. Actually, one thing might be worth flagging up at some point is the national insurance increase and how it affects our overall budget. I believe the figure for across the board is something like £600,000, purely higher national insurance, including the companies. It might be worth just indicating that at some point as one of the extra burdens we're suddenly having to bear without any offsetting compensation.
Okay, yeah. I think then that's everything really, isn't it? So just so that you're aware, I will top and tail this, get it checked out by the heads of service as well. So there may be some further sort of amendments, but most of it will just be tidying up some of the yellow bits that I've got sort of question marks and stuff over. It'll then go to scrutiny as a sort of a document ready to be signed off fully. So that's kind of your last opportunity if there's anything you want to see changed to have it raised at scrutiny, and then from scrutiny it goes on to cabinet to be signed off.
Which scrutiny meeting is it going to, Tom? Was there
it's going to the one on the 1st
of February. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, this is a treadmill, you know that. I mean,
really
you never get any peace.
No. Thanks.
No, well, thank you all ever so much. Thank you especially, Tom, for doing all this, especially late on Sunday. So I had to work even later. But I must also especially, you are newbies to this panel and you've all done a great job. I must particularly thank Imogen for joining to address the gender balance and having never been on finance before coming and joining us. So thank you very much. But I like to think we've done a good job. I don't envy Nigel trying to manage all this. Anyhow, thanks ever so much. And we can finish and it's past.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.